The relationship between China and Russia is often touted as a robust strategic partnership. These two countries have a long history of political and economic cooperation, and they've frequently stood side by side in the face of pressure from the West. However, if you look closely at this relationship, you'll notice it's not the warm, friendly bond that many assume it to be. Rather, it's a political marriage of convenience. When Xi Jinping visits Russia for a military parade, despite the high symbolism of the event, we can't ignore one key fact. Xi and Putin are not best friends. Sure, they can stand together, smile at each other in public events, but behind that smile lies careful calculation. Their relationship is one built on mutual benefits, not personal affection. They may share common goals, but it's more about strategic advantage than heartfelt camaraderie. This event is almost like a political marriage between two countries. But don't expect it to be a romantic rendezvous. This isn't the "let's sit down for tea and talk about our feelings" type of friendship. It's a contract where both sides get what they need. Russia offers its energy resources, and China offers its geopolitical clout. Putin and Xi are not cuddling up to each other, no matter how much the media might try to sell it as a bromance. It's a strategic partnership, not a personal one. Putin is genuinely thrilled to have Xi join him for the military parade, that much is clear. For Russia, the relationship with China is invaluable, offering economic and political benefits. However, Xi, despite his outward politeness, isn't getting too cozy with Putin. He's not someone who easily expresses emotions, especially when it comes to political relationships. Xi knows that his relationship with Russia is crucial, but also understands that he needs to maintain a level of independence. Xi's diplomatic approach is grounded in pragmatism. He doesn't see Putin as a close personal friend, but rather as an important partner in a larger geopolitical strategy. In international politics, maintaining a safe distance is often more beneficial than getting too close. It's a balancing act, one where Russia is important, but China must never allow itself to become too reliant. Putin may be all smiles when he greets Xi, but let's be honest, Xi's smile is more like a polite nod than a genuine show of affection. When these two meet, they're not sharing stories over dinner or chatting about their private lives. They're engaging in a dance of diplomacy, with each knowing full well that their bond is more about power and mutual interests than anything resembling true friendship. Xi is a man who keeps his cards close to his chest. No heart-to-heart conversations here. The military parade that Xi attended in Russia wasn't just about showcasing military might. It was about making a political statement. Both China and Russia understand that in international politics, such grand displays are opportunities to demonstrate their power, not to engage in personal exchanges. They may appear united, but behind the scenes, their collaboration is rooted in shared strategic interests, not an emotional connection. The parade was more of a performance than a genuine friendship-building event. The show of military strength was a reminder that both countries are ready to project their power on the global stage. While they may stand side by side, the real power play is happening behind the scenes, where China and Russia are securing their geopolitical futures. Let's not kid ourselves here. This parade was not a grand display of brotherly love between Xi and Putin. It was a carefully orchestrated performance. They stood together, posed for pictures, and waved at the crowd, but they're not about to start sending each other birthday cards. This isn't a celebration of friendship, it's a show of military and political power. And we all know that in international relations, it's not about who you hold hands with. It's about who can hold the most influence. This was a performance, not a personal moment. Trump has long believed that he could influence the relationship between China and Russia, thinking that by playing the middleman, he could drive a wedge between them. But in reality, both Xi and Putin are far too savvy for such an approach. They've had their own interests aligned for years, and no outsider, least of all a former US president, can easily alter that. Trump's strategy has often been one of direct confrontation or manipulation, but China and Russia are no strangers to these tactics. They've both dealt with sanctions and political pressure from the West for years and have learned how to navigate such obstacles. Trump may want to create discord between them, but Xi and Putin are united by their mutual opposition to U.S. global dominance. Trump's interference might just have the opposite effect, pushing China and Russia closer together rather than driving them apart. Trump can sit in his office all he wants, imagining that he can play puppet master with Xi and Putin. But the truth is, he's just a spectator in this game. He's trying to squeeze himself into a relationship that doesn't need him. If he thinks he can make Xi and Putin turn on each other, he's sorely mistaken. These two leaders are playing chess, and Trump is trying to tell them how to move the pieces. Spoiler alert, they're not listening. The more Trump pushes, the tighter their bond gets, as they realize they share more common ground than they do with him. Xi, while appearing to be cooperative with Putin, is firmly in control. He's not there to reinforce a personal friendship, but to assert China's dominance in the global order. Russia may be a valuable ally, but China is keen on maintaining its independence and strategic autonomy. Xi's goal is to ensure that China leads in this relationship, rather than allowing Russia to pull the strings. The strategic partnership between China and Russia is carefully calibrated. Xi is perfectly aware of the power dynamics at play. He doesn't need to get too close to Putin because China's position on the global stage is already firmly secured. The relationship with Russia is important, but it's only one piece of China's broader strategy to cement itself as a superpower. Xi is not about to let Putin steer this ship. He's at the helm, and while Putin may have his hand on the wheel, it's Xi who's giving the directions. There's no real equal partnership here. It's a carefully controlled collaboration where China calls the shots. Putin can stand next to Xi all he wants, but in the end, China is driving the bus. If Trump thinks Russia is the lead player in this relationship, he's sadly mistaken. It's all about China's long-term goals, and Russia is just a supporting player. The China-Russia relationship is undeniably strong, but it's not one based on personal affection. It's a relationship of convenience, where both countries recognize their mutual interests and understand the value of strategic collaboration. However, this bond is not one of emotional closeness. It's a calculated partnership where both sides maintain their independence and strategic autonomy. Xi and Putin are careful not to get too close because they know that in geopolitics, distance can be as important as proximity. The closer you get, the more vulnerable you become to being influenced by the other party. Maintaining a certain level of distance allows both China and Russia to benefit from the relationship while keeping their own priorities intact. Xi and Putin may stand side by side, but don't mistake that for brotherly love. This isn't a buddy cop movie. It's a cold, calculated geopolitical partnership. They're not holding hands, they're holding power. And while Trump may think he can stir the pot and create divisions, the reality is that China and Russia have already worked out the recipe for their partnership. The more Trump pushes, the more it will backfire, pushing these two closer together rather than pulling them apart. Trump, who is always looking to advance America's interests with his clever tactics, may think he's in a unique position to drive a wedge between China and Russia. After all, one of Trump's signature traits during his presidency was his belief that America could control, or at least influence, the relationships between other major powers through direct or indirect pressure. But does Trump truly have a chance at succeeding in dividing China and Russia? If we look at the reality, Trump's chances in this matter seem exceedingly slim. Despite his use of tactics like divide and rule or buying time with economic and political pressure, the relationship between China and Russia remains surprisingly stable. Yet, Trump, ever the opportunist, may think this is his golden opportunity to alter the course. But is there really an opportunity for Trump? Or is it just wishful thinking on his part? Trump may think he's controlling a high-stakes political chess game, but in reality, he's playing a game where the pieces have already been set. Trump is not the only one who can push China and Russia apart, and more importantly, he's not the one deciding where the relationship between the two countries will go. Xi and Putin aren't pawns in Trump's game. They're the master players with their own strategies. In fact, when Trump thinks he can create a rift, Xi and Putin might just laugh it off and continue their cooperation. Why? Because China and Russia both understand that they need each other in a changing world where collaboration between major powers isn't just a choice, it's a necessity. Trump may be disappointed to realize that his machinations might not even come close to influencing these two global powers, who have solidified their ties over time and aren't easily swayed. By 2025, Donald Trump found himself in the unlikely position of being the first U.S. president to win China's favor, at least over tariffs. Throughout his first term, Trump made headlines for his tough-on-China stance, slapping tariffs on Chinese goods and calling them out for unfair trade practices. Fast forward to 2025, and Trump's approach had done a complete 180. Instead of using tariffs as his primary weapon, he began softening his stance, eager to reset relations with Beijing. And why not? After all, what's a little backpedaling between friends? By 2025, Trump had decided that rather than escalating the trade war, he would use tariffs as a bargaining chip to foster a more cooperative relationship with China. Gone were the days of his aggressive America First policies, replaced with a new, more charming approach. He took the unprecedented step of offering to roll back many of the tariffs imposed during the trade war, signaling a shift toward diplomacy and painting himself as the ultimate dealmaker once again. Yes, Trump, the man who once promised to make China pay, now seemed determined to make nice. Ah, Trump, never one to shy away from a good plot twist. Just a few years ago, he was calling China the enemy, slapping tariffs on everything that moved, and lecturing Xi Jinping like the world's most aggressive PTA president. But by 2025, look at him now. The guy who's been playing hard to get with China is suddenly the one showing up with roses and chocolate, hoping to make things right. It's almost as if Trump is doing a live-action remake of How to Lose a Trade War and Still Win Friends. It's like watching the villain from an action movie suddenly decide, you know what? Maybe I should just stop blowing things up and throw a party instead. The man who once declared he was going to punish China with tariffs now looks like he's trying to negotiate a business deal with a bow tie on, pretending he never said any of that trade war stuff. And really, who could blame him? After all, why get into a prolonged trade war when you can just roll back some tariffs, throw on a smile, and claim victory? Deeper dive into Trump's shift over tariffs with China. 1. Trump's strategy of economic diplomacy. Trump's sudden softening on tariffs was a brilliant move, if by brilliant you mean completely unexpected and hard to follow. The man who spent his first few years in office rattling off tariffs like they were free samples at a supermarket now found himself offering to roll them back, hoping to get back in China's good graces. Why? Well, because tariffs didn't exactly work as expected. Sure, they hurt China, but they also hurt American businesses, and Trump's base was starting to notice their favorite products costing more. So, instead of continuing a never-ending battle, Trump had an epiphany. Maybe I can just play nice and make a deal instead. Trump's offer to ease up on tariffs was a move he believed would restore a more cooperative tone between the U.S. and China. But in reality, it was like the ex who said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to dump you, but you know, it was really your fault." Classic Trump, trying to make amends, but still clinging to that sense of I'm the one doing you a favor here. 2. Political calculations and the need for international cooperation. It turns out that after a pandemic and a global economic slump, Trump realized that China was still an essential player in the global market. If he wanted to keep America's economy ticking, he couldn't keep up the tough guy act forever. So, in true Trump fashion, he did a complete 180 and started calling up China like an ex wanting to get back together for dinner, saying, I know we've had our differences, but we can work this out, right? Let's face it, though. Trump wasn't the only one who needed China. With the global economy in disarray, Trump figured that if he could cozy up to China a little, it might help him win back some international goodwill and stabilize the economy without looking weak. So, he started to use tariffs as a way to bargain, rolling them back slowly in exchange for promises of better cooperation. It wasn't just about avoiding a trade war anymore. It was about making sure the U.S. stayed relevant in the shifting economic landscape. But did it make him look like a mastermind negotiator? Nah. More like the guy at the end of the party who spilled his drink and then offered to buy everyone around to make up for it. Well, there you have it. Trump's sudden shift from trade war warrior to China's bestie in 2025 is certainly one for the books. But will it stick, or is it just another page in the ever-changing saga of Trump's foreign policy? Only time will tell. If you enjoyed this wild ride through political plot twists, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay updated on the latest international shenanigans and political drama. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Trump's charm offensive with China will last, or is it just a temporary flirtation? Let us know what you think.